We've all heard the urban legends, heeded the warnings, followed the rules to the letter. Most of us, actually. Christian and I weren't like regular kids. We got into trouble all the time. We were constantly getting into trouble, from truancy to shoplifting to joyriding. Without a doubt, we were the most despised teenagers in town. Little did we realize that all of these pranks would inevitably lead to the worst day of our lives. God, I wish I could take it all back. People in my town have always been very superstitious. Not in a, oh, you spilled salt, so throw a pinch over your left shoulder kind of way, but superstitious. No, something happened here a long time ago. Something sinister. Something that continues to haunt the town half a century later. In the 1970s, children started disappearing. The disappearances always happened at night. Always. And always the same pattern. Parents would lock their homes tighter than Fort Knox, and the next morning find the front door wide open. The abductions began piling up at the same time that the police department began receiving nightly reports of an ice cream truck circling the neighborhood. Each time the police were called, the truck disappeared, regardless of response time. Oddly enough, we didn't have ice cream trucks in the 70s. We don't now. It's always been the kind of place where everyone knows everyone, and no family in town has ever owned an ice cream truck. Naturally, people started linking the truck to the disappearances. Naturally, people tried to catch the mysterious kidnapper behind the wheel. At this time, adults began to go missing. None of those who encountered the driver were ever seen again. Fear began to reach a boiling point. Panic gripped people. Families with children began to pack up their belongings. Even those without families considered moving. And just when almost half of the population was about to scatter, everything stopped. The kidnappings that happened almost every night, the appearance of the ice cream truck, everything stopped. The townspeople never recovered. And how could they recover from something like that? Most of the victims' families left, having lost all hope of seeing their loved ones again. Can't say I blame them. I wouldn't have stayed here after that either. Those who stayed developed paranoia and did everything they could to make sure nothing like this ever happened again. This, unfortunately, has resulted in extremely strict rules. Girls are forbidden to walk alone. The doors and windows of every house must be locked at all times. And of course, no one is allowed to go outside after dark for any reason. As a not-so-subtle reminder of this, the town goes silent long before sunset. When I was growing up, I always thought these stories were bullshit. I thought it was just another lazy excuse for parents to keep an eye on their kids, to keep us from making a mess. I should have listened. Sarah, for the last time, I'm not sneaking out with you tonight. You know the rules, Christian whispered, absent-mindedly tapping the eraser of his pencil on his notebook. Come on, that's the only rule we haven't broken yet. You painted Officer Dawkins' police cruiser, and that's what you're afraid of? I'm not afraid. That's a whole other thing. This is something sacred. You've lived here as long as I have. You should know that, he hissed, pretending to dial Mrs. Huckabee, who was giving a boring lecture on mitosis. Aren't you at least a little bit interested? You can't seriously be telling me that you've never given any thought to night walks. Surely there must be more to it than they're saying. Sarah, I'm not going with you. If you want to risk your life by going out in the dark, then go. But leave me out of it, Christian said with a stern finality in his tone. I'd never seen him so serious before, and it was freaking me out. We sat in silence for the rest of the class. Christian hadn't paid attention to me all day. I started to wonder if I'd overreacted. I gave him time to come to his senses. I had just finished shoving my textbooks into my locker when Christian walked up to me. I jumped up, almost dropping my backpack. I didn't expect to see him again this day. What's up, man? I thought you were going to make me walk home alone. He met me with a look that sent a chill down my spine. Bitter determination was written all over his face. I'll go with you. I was stunned. After all, he had been so adamant before. What had changed? Are you sure? I mean, I don't want you to go if you're not okay with it. I'm sure. I need to know, he said, averting his gaze. Okay. We'll meet at your house at midnight. Is that okay with you? Yeah. Christian looked up at me in embarrassment. You didn't think I'd let you walk home alone, did you? I chuckled, bestowing him with a smirk. No, I guess I didn't think so. On the drive home from school, Christian seemed to be his old self again. I listened intently as he told me about his latest revenge plan. He was going to set off a bomb in Becky Nelson's locker for snitching on him. I didn't care that I was being dragged into another one of his devious pranks. I was just happy things were back to normal between us. "I'm going to make that bitch pay," Christian hissed, slamming his fist into the palm of his hand. "I can't wait to see the look on her ugly face." "Anyway, I'll see you tonight," I said, walking up the driveway. "You bet." We waved goodbye, and I watched Christian continue down the sidewalk. Midnight couldn't come fast enough. I was looking forward to the night coming. I felt like my heart was going to burst out of my chest at any moment. Adrenaline always spiked before one of our little adventures. I watched the time like a hawk. My parents had already gone to bed, and I was left to my own devices. It was a dangerous game. My eyes were fixed on the numbers on my phone screen, 11:58 p.m. It was so close, and then I heard a sound, a rumble. Something hard hit my window. My eyes widened and a smile played on my lips as I rushed to the source of the sound. Christian was standing in the street, his arm raised like a quarterback's. "Oh, there you are. Hey," he said, dropping the rock from his hand. "Man, you scared the hell out of me. Weren't we supposed to meet at your house? And why didn't you just text me like a normal person?" "Sorry, I got restless," he mumbled, staring at his feet. "And my parents took away my phone last week, remember?" "Oh yeah, I don't know how I forgot." "Coming down," I said, carefully climbing out and leaning on the step ladder I had strategically placed under my window. I jumped off the last step and landed in the grass with a soft thud. "Ready?" I asked, eagerly awaiting the start. "Yeah, let's go," Christian said, taking my hand. I blushed, and he quickly recoiled. Even in the dim yellow light of the streetlights, I could see that his face was bright red. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that. I just want to leave, that's all." No, you're good, I get it." A long, awkward pause followed before Christian spoke. "So, where are we going?" "Well, I don't know. I haven't thought that far ahead. Where do you want to go?" "How about the park? Might be fun with no kids around." "To the park. Lead the way," I said, extending my arm sharply. A wide, goofy grin appeared on Christian's face, and he readily complied. We walked in silence, enjoying the scenery around us. We passed dozens of houses, their looming presence giving the night silence an unsettling look. The dim light cast eerie reflections on the windows, making my blood run cold. Another oddity I noticed was the deathly silence. Only light footsteps on the pavement and the sound of blood in my ears could be heard. There were no sounds made by nocturnal creatures. No bugs, no frogs, nothing. Not even the chirping of crickets could be heard. And that sent a chill down my spine. By the time we reached the playground, I was sweating. Christian looked nonchalant, but I suspected he was just pretending. Don't get me wrong, Christian was pretty cool, but truth be told, I was the more daring of the two of us. Usually if I was on edge, he was 10 times worse. We sat down on a neighboring swing. I flinched as the rusty metal of the swing creaked and groaned under our weight. Even though we were alone, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. It was as if something sinister knew we were here. I shuddered at the thought that something evil lurked in the darkness, waiting for the right moment to strike. I told myself I was worrying about nothing, but I kept my eyes on the shadows of the trees behind us. I was beginning to regret leaving the safety of my home. "So, Sarah, is it just me, or does this place, this town, have a sense of presence? You know, like we're not alone here." He spoke softly as if he was afraid someone else would hear him. "Yeah, I can feel it too. It's really creepy," I said, feeling the oppressive weight of that feeling lifted off my shoulders little by little. It was good to know that Christian felt it too. Christian stared into the mulch at our feet. He looked lost in his thoughts, as if his body was here and his mind was in some distant dimension. "You know, I wasn't originally going to come with you. I didn't just decide to come today." He sighed, a tired eagerness written all over his face. He was hiding something from me, but I could sense that he was slowly building up the courage to tell me. "So, I know you've heard all the stories about the ice cream truck that kidnapped kids in the 70s, and I know you think it's all a load of crap, but it's not." He paused, looking for a reaction on my face. "How can you be so sure? We weren't even alive then, so..." "My uncle was one of the kids who was kidnapped." My heart sank down, not just from the fact that Christian was related to someone who had been kidnapped, but that these stories were true. "Christian, I'm so sorry. I didn't know It's okay," he said, interrupting me again. He was 3 years old when it happened. It's been decades, but I don't think Dad ever really forgave himself. He was only 5 at the time, but he thinks he should have done more. He doesn't tell me this, but I know it. I can see it in his eyes. It still torments him even now. A tear ran down Christian's cheek, but he quickly brushed it away. "I know it's stupid of me, but I just had to find out if it was true, whether this thing still exists. I honestly hoped it did. I know I don't have much chance of killing whoever's behind it, but it might help a little, right?" He smiled and displayed a sharp black knife. "Yeah, I think it'll improve your chances a little," I grinned. "You know I wouldn't let you fight alone either. I'd hate to upset you, though. I don't think we're going to run into that thing tonight." "Yeah, you're probably right," Christian said, getting up from the swing. "Let's go home." "I agree. I've seen enough." I joined him and we started walking back towards our houses. We had just reached the street when I heard some kind of sound, a ringing sound. The sound cut through the silence like a rusty knife. It was slow, melodic, but something about it was off. Christian and I looked at each other, our eyes like saucers. My heart pounded frantically against my ribcage as the sound drew closer. It was the tune of London bridges falling down, intertwined with the sound of a jack-in-the-box running, and waves of panic swept through me at every interval. And then everything slowly rolled on. A white truck rounded the corner of the street we were standing on. On its top, facing the sky like a rocket ready for takeoff, stood a comically large pink ice cream cone. The windows were so tinted that I couldn't see who or what was behind the wheel. I wanted to run, scream, hide, anything, but I was paralyzed by fear. The truck crept closer and closer. Terror seeped into my bones. I didn't know what to do. Eventually it drove by. I stared at it, absorbing the various inscriptions on the side. And then it stopped, right in front of us. The music cut off, plunging the night into an all-encompassing silence. I held my breath, waiting for something to happen. Without warning, the back doors of the ice cream truck swung open. I looked up at Christian. The horror on his face was replaced with curiosity. He started making his way toward the open truck. His legs moved as if on their own, pulling him closer and closer. To this day, I don't know why, but I didn't even try to stop him. No, I joined him. I can't explain it, but there was something tantalizing about that truck, something that effortlessly took hold of me and pulled me along, and I was powerless to stop it. We both hesitantly walked closer and stopped right behind it. I peered inside, holding my breath. It was immaculate. The gleaming white interior with rows of freezers shone from within. Every flavor of ice cream imaginable could be found here. At that moment, I wanted to climb into the back of the truck and try all the varieties of ice cream it had to offer. Nothing bad would happen. After all, it was just an ice cream truck. Christian stepped inside before I could react. He turned to me and reached out his hand to pick me up. I didn't even have time to take it. The door suddenly slammed shut, locking Christian inside. I'll never forget the look of horror on his face in that split second before the doors closed. What brought me out of my stupor was when an ice cream truck sped down the road. Tires squealed and I was left standing alone under a streetlight. I broke down, fat tears streaming down my cheeks, and I hurried home. I couldn't lose Christian. He was my only true friend. Bursting through the door, I collapsed on the floor at their feet and started shouting nonsense at my parents. I didn't care if I got in trouble anymore. I just wanted to find a way to get my friend back. The police were called. Christian's parents were notified and a search party was assembled. Needless to say, they didn't find him. Christian is still missing. After that, I was never the same again. No matter how much time passed, no matter how many therapy sessions I attended, no matter how hard I tried to forget, the image of Christian's terrified face still lingers in my mind. But there is something that makes me even more horrified than that expression of pure terror etched on my best friend's face. Something I still can't understand. When I looked in the back of that ice cream truck, there was no one behind the wheel. So why am I telling you this? Why now? Well, my son went missing last night. I woke up to my husband snoring next to me. My stomach twisted in horror as the eerie tune came to my ears. London Bridge is falling. I rushed to the front door. It was wide open. I watched helplessly as my child climbed into the back of the truck. I couldn't even scream. Fear gripped me, just as it had that night 2 decades ago. A rush of panic coursed through my veins like poison. As the ice cream truck drove away with my child, I noticed the window was rolled down, and I swear that for a split second I saw Christian wink at me from the driver's seat.